The morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our $12 million mansion as Michael dropped the bombshell that would end our 15-year marriage. "It's over, Rebecca," he said, adjusting his Rolex with practiced indifference. "Jessica and I are in love. She's young, ambitious, everything you used to be before you got comfortable playing housewife. My name is Rebecca Anderson, and at 42, I was watching my husband throw away our marriage for his 26-year-old secretary. The irony wasn't lost on me, especially since he had no idea who really owned the mansion he was so casually threatening to sell. "How long?" I asked, keeping my voice steady as I sipped my morning coffee. "Does it matter?" He smirked, running a hand through his expertly styled gray hair. "Long enough to know she's everything I need. And let's be honest, Becca, you've been riding my coattails for years. What have you actually accomplished besides decorating this house?" If he only knew. 5 years ago, when my grandmother passed away, she'd left me a substantial inheritance, $15 million that I kept secret from Michael. While he was busy climbing the corporate ladder and falling for every young woman who stroked his ego, I'd been making careful investments, including buying this very house through a private trust. "You really should have read the property documents more carefully when we moved in," I said mildly, watching his face. "You just assumed you owned everything, didn't you?" His smirk faltered slightly. "What are you talking about? I bought this house. My name is on the lease." "You're renting, Michael. From a private trust. Did you ever wonder why the purchase never went through? Why you could only secure a long-term lease?" The color drained from his face as realization began to dawn. "You're lying. This is my house. I make the payments. To the Anderson Family Trust, I finish for him. Which I established 5 years ago. You never questioned it because you assumed you were in control. Just like you never questioned where the money for your startup came from when your first business was failing." Michael's hands gripped the kitchen island, his knuckles turning white. "That was a bank loan. That was my investment through a shell company. I knew you'd never accept help from your wife directly. Your ego wouldn't allow it." I stood up, smoothing my silk robe. "You might want to tell Jessica that her dream home isn't part of the package deal anymore." "This is ridiculous," he sputtered. "You're making this up to spite me." I pulled out my phone and forwarded him an email, property records, trust documents, investment papers. Everything I'd kept hidden for years while he built his life on the foundation I'd quietly provided. "I've already instructed my lawyer to terminate your lease," I said, watching as he scrolled through the documents with shaking hands. "You have 30 days to find a new place. I'm sure Jessica has room in her apartment." The look on his face was priceless, rage, disbelief, and underneath it all, the dawning horror of realizing just how badly he'd miscalculated. All those years of treating me like a trophy wife, dismissing my opinions, flaunting his affairs. He never suspected I was the one holding the real power. "You can't do this," he said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "The board won't stand for it." "Your company's board?" I smiled. "You might want to check who owns the majority shares through various investment groups. I've been very busy while you were working late with Jessica." Michael's face went from pale to ashen. He'd spent 15 years believing he was the brilliant businessman, the self-made success story. Now his whole world was crumbling, and the woman he dismissed as just a housewife was the one holding the sledgehammer. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why go through all this deception? Why not just tell me?" "Because you never would have accepted it," I replied simply. "Your ego needed to believe you did it all on your own. I loved you enough to let you have that illusion. But now it's time for the truth." I walked to the window, looking out over the manicured gardens I'd designed. "You have until tonight to pack your essentials. The rest can be arranged through our lawyers." "And what am I supposed to tell Jessica?" he demanded. "Tell her whatever you want. Tell her your wife outsmarted you. Tell her the mansion she thought she was getting belongs to the woman she helped you betray. Or tell her nothing at all. I'm sure she'll figure it out when she realizes she's dating a man who's been living off his wife's money for years." As Michael stormed out of the kitchen, I heard him already making frantic calls to his lawyers. But I knew what they would tell him. Everything was legal, properly documented, and completely beyond his control. I picked up my own phone and dialed my lawyer's number. It was time to start the next phase of my plan. Taking control of not just the house, but everything else Michael had assumed was his. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal meetings and damage control. Michael's lawyers tried everything to challenge my ownership, but the documentation was ironclad. I'd spent years making sure every transaction, every investment was perfectly legal and thoroughly documented. I sat in my home office reviewing emails from Michael's board members. They were understandably concerned about the company's stability, given that their CEO was about to face a very public divorce. What they didn't know yet was that I owned 52% of the company's shares through various investment groups. Mrs. Anderson. My assistant Sarah appeared in the doorway. Mr. Anderson's secretary, Jessica, is here to see you. I raised an eyebrow, surprised by her boldness. Send her in. Jessica strode into my office like she owned it, her youth and confidence radiating from every designer-clad inch. She was beautiful, I had to give her that. All long legs and perfect makeup, exactly the type Michael had always gravitated toward. This is harassment, she declared, dropping into the chair across from me. You're trying to ruin Michael's life because you're bitter. I couldn't help but laugh. Sit down, Jessica. Let's talk about what you think you know. She faltered slightly at my calm demeanor. I know you're trying to take everything from him, the house, the company. You mean my house? My company? I pulled up the property records on my computer screen, turning it to face her. Everything Michael has been promising you belongs to me. Has he told you that yet? The color drained from her face as she read through the documents. This can't be right. Michael built that company from nothing. Michael built that company with my money. I corrected her. Every major investment, every expansion, every acquisition, all funded through my investment groups. He just didn't know it. Why would you do that? She asked, her voice small. Why hide it? Because Michael needed to believe he did it himself. Men like him always do. I leaned forward. Tell me, Jessica, what exactly did he promise you? The mansion? A position in the company? A life of luxury? She shifted uncomfortably. He said we'd have everything. That once the divorce was settled. Let me guess, he told you I was just a trophy wife who got lucky. That I'd get a modest settlement while he kept everything he'd worked for. I smiled as understanding dawned in her eyes. How much do you really know about the man you're planning to build a life with? Jessica's perfectly manicured hands twisted in her lap. He wouldn't lie to me. We're in love. Like he was in love with his previous secretary, or the marketing intern before that. I pulled out another file. I've documented every affair, Jessica. Every girlfriend he promised the world to before moving on to the next. Would you like to meet some of them? Tears welled in her eyes, smearing her mascara. You're just trying to hurt me because he chose me over you. No, Jessica. I'm trying to show you who Michael really is before you waste years of your life on him like I did. I handed her a tissue. He's not the brilliant businessman you think he is. He's a man who's been living off his wife's money while treating her like she's beneath him. Is that really the future you want? She stood abruptly, grabbing her purse. I have to go. One more thing. I called as she reached the door. Check your company email. You'll find transfer papers to our London office, effective immediately. Full relocation package included. She turned, shock evident on her face. You're not firing me? I'm giving you an opportunity to start fresh, away from Michael's influence. Whether you take it is up to you. After she left, I sat back in my chair, thinking about all the women who'd come before her. Michael had a type, young, ambitious, eager to believe in his carefully crafted image of success. I'd been one of them once before I inherited my grandmother's fortune and saw him for who he really was. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. What did you say to Jessica? She's not answering my calls. I smiled, imagining his panic as another piece of this carefully constructed world crumbled. Maybe she's realizing there's a difference between ambition and deception. I typed back. Check your email. The board wants an emergency meeting tomorrow. The pieces were falling into place exactly as I planned. Michael had spent years underestimating me, treating me like a decorative accessory to his success. Now he was about to learn exactly who he'd been sleeping next to all this time. And I was just getting started. The morning of the board meeting dawned bright and clear. I arrived early, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit that cost more than Michael's first car. The boardroom was already buzzing with tension as members filed in, their faces masks of professional concern. Michael arrived last, looking haggard. The past week had clearly taken its toll. His usual polished appearance was slightly rumpled, his confidence visibly shaken. Jessica's empty desk outside his office had probably contributed to his distress. "Let's begin," I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. Michael's eyes narrowed at my position of authority, but he said nothing. As majority shareholder, I continued, "I've called this meeting to address some concerns about the company's leadership and future direction." The next hour was a masterclass in controlled demolition. I presented evidence of Michael's mismanagement, not enough to damage the company, but more than enough to justify a change in leadership. Every questionable decision, every risky move he'd made thinking he was playing with his own money. It all painted a picture of a CEO who'd been operating without proper oversight. "This is ridiculous," Michael finally exploded, standing up. "I built this company. With funds from the Anderson Family Trust, I finished for him. Every major decision you made was backed by my investment groups. Did you really never wonder why you got approved for all those loans so easily?" The board members exchanged glances. They'd all assumed Michael's success was self-made. Now they were learning that their CEO had been unknowingly running his wife's company all along. Mrs. Anderson, one of the senior board members, spoke up. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A restructuring," I replied smoothly. "I'll be assuming the role of CEO, effective immediately. Mr. Anderson will be offered a generous severance package contingent on a peaceful transition and his signature on certain non-compete agreements." Michael's face turned purple. "You can't do this." "Actually, I can. And I am." I slid a folder across the table to him. "Your choice is simple, Michael. Sign these papers and walk away with enough money to start fresh, or fight me and watch me dismantle everything you think you've built." The board voted unanimously in favor of the change. They were business people after all, and the numbers didn't lie. Under Michael's leadership, we'd been successful. But under my direct control, we could be extraordinary. After the meeting, Michael caught up with me in the parking garage. "Why?" he demanded. "Why go through all this? You could have told me the truth years ago." I turned to face him, really looking at him for the first time in years. The man I'd fallen in love with was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. "Would you have loved me if you'd known?" I asked quietly. "Would you have been able to accept that your success came from your wife? Or would it have destroyed your ego even faster than your affairs did?" He had no answer for that. "The papers will be at your lawyer's office," I said, turning away. "I suggest you sign them quickly. Jessica's already accepted the London transfer, by the way. Apparently, she's more interested in actual success than the illusion of it." The next few months transformed both the company and my life. Without Michael's reckless decision-making, we expanded strategically, focusing on sustainable growth rather than quick profits. The board discovered that the woman they dismissed as just the CEO's wife had a natural talent for business and a vision that extended beyond the next quarter's earnings. 1 year after the divorce, I sat in what had once been Michael's office, looking out over the city. The company's stock had doubled. Our employee satisfaction rates were at an all-time high. And the mansion, my mansion, had never felt more like home. My assistant brought in the morning paper, where a small article caught my eye. Michael had started a new business venture, something modest but promising. Good for him, I thought. Maybe he'd finally learned to build something real, something that belonged to him alone. That evening, as I walked through my garden, I thought about the lessons we'd both learned. Michael had discovered that true success isn't about appearances or control. It's about creating genuine value, and I had finally stepped out of the shadows, no longer content to be the silent force behind someone else's story. The mansion that Michael had once threatened to sell now stood as a symbol of everything I'd achieved, not just the wealth or the success, but the courage to finally claim my own power, to stop hiding behind a man's ego, and stand proudly in my own light. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's world. It's about building your own exactly as you always knew you could.